Hello, and welcome to Together for Victoria. This is a panel in which we'll be talking the history of the Victoria series, sharing some development stories from previous games, and just chatting a whole bunch about Victoria in general. With me, I have Don Lind and Henrik Hansson. So, Don, introduce yourself and tell us, why are you at this panel?
So I got roped into this apparently, but back in the day, I worked as a programmer on Wiki 2, and I was also, I think we called it project lead back then for some of the expansions. So I have a pretty long history with Wiki, and I also helped out with Christmas patches and stuff like that after it was released.
Yep, and Henrik, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Hi. Yeah, so I worked on the Christmas patch together with Martin here and Don, and then also I was part of the initial setup of Wiki 3.
Yes,
did some prototyping and so on.
Sorry. As you might know, we are actually the Christmas patch team, and we'll be talking a bit more about that later. All right, so I'm thinking we'll start a little bit by actually having you, Don, talk a little bit about sort of the background of Victoria 2 and as much as you can cover it, Victoria 1, because you have actually been out of us three. You have been at Paradox the longest, and you've also had the most development history on Wiki 2. I was on the last expansion and, the Christmas patch, but you were actually with the project earlier than that, right?
Yeah, so I was there from scratch, actually. I wasn't involved in Victoria 1. I think the only people who were working on that, who are still at Paradox, are Johan and Henrik Hansson. I think that's probably it. It was a pretty small team. For Wiki 2, I was in there from the beginning as a programmer. That was a long time ago now. It's like 10 years or something, right?
Oh yeah, you did quite a bit of work on the original economy code, didn't you?
Yes, we all did. I feel like we're going to be talking a lot about the old economy code today.
Oh boy,
probably.
I mean, it is a little bit of the elephant in the room if you're talking about Wiki 2. So I don't think we should feel shy in sharing our hurt.
No. But
so were you
I can
also
start with the basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So back then, usually when we started a new game, we took the latest game we had, and we basically started modifying that to make a new game. But for Wiki, we wanted to sort of have a map that was more like EU and EU3 in this case. So we took, if I remember correctly, the Hearts of Iron 3 code base, and then we spliced in Divine Wind. So there was like diplomacy and some of the politics and stuff from EU, plus the map melded with Hearts of Iron to make the core of the game, basically.
All right. How long was the development of the original before all the expansions?
So what I've managed to glean from like spreadsheets that I've poked Johan about, it seemed to have been about 9 months for the base game. And we had something like 7 to 9 people on the project, depending on the time of it.
And
so, this was this was, I think, actually fairly long for back then. Now it feels extremely short, I have to say.
Yeah, a bit different from now, to be sure. But Henrik, you were not actually on Wiki 2 in any, so to speak, official capacity, correct?
No, I was just a big fan of the game, so I did dig through the code while I was not working on it. So we did get to the just wanting to know how certain things worked, and then eventually you and Don started working on the Christmas patch, I think, and then I was like, I have some issues I want to fix, things that have been bothering me a lot. So yeah, so I joined in on that. I fixed, for instance, the bug where you're if you embark your troops on ships, they would just disappear in multiplayer. So like that, like, because I always got trapped by that, and then I had like 1,000 on 1,000 of troops just gone from the game until I reloaded the save. So yeah, I did get to fix some issues with it.
Right, but before we talk more about the Christmas patch, let's actually tackle that big old elephant. Let's talk about the economy code and our own experiences with it. Seniority, so Dan, you go first.
All right. So the design we set up for it was supposed to be this closed system. So Wiki 1 had a pretty gamey economy, but we wanted to try and make a more real economy for Victoria 2. So we made this closed system where money doesn't get injected from somewhere, for example, at least not initially. And as it turned out, that was incredibly hard and also incredibly performance intensive. Because I think when we did this, I didn't even have a multi-core processor. I think it might have had hyper-threading maybe, but I'm not sure. So you couldn't really parallel size stuff when we made the base stuff at all. And I think probably the thing we spent the most time on was the economy code, because we rewrote it so many times for performance reasons. And for each rewrite, it became more and more hard to read.
Yeah, so, all the optimizations.
Yeah, and for every new person who joined the company, they usually went, "Hey, I got this idea. I want to fix the Victoria code."
Yeah, so I was just about to get to that. So that was my first experience with the Wiki 2 economy code. So I joined the Paradox in 2013, and at some point during that year, I was assigned to the Heart of Darkness expansion to work with you, Dan. You were the project lead on that. And, of course, being green and full of enthusiasm and like, I know what I'm doing. I can fix anything. I go, okay, I'm on Wiki 2. I love this game, but the economy is really broken. I'm going to fix the economy code. And you were like, you just looked at me and went like, yeah, good luck, basically. And then I think I came back to you the next day or something like that. Do you remember? And I went, yeah, you were right. Because just going into that code and even just trying to parse it, because, this is, of course, not the original code. This is after it's been, I'm guessing it was pretty complex and not that easy to read to begin with. But then, many optimizations and tweaks and changes to make it run better later, and just trying to follow how things happen in the buying order was a complete and utter nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, we even had bits, I think, we rewrote in assembler, actually, for performance. So that didn't help readability.
And actually, I think if you go by modern compilers now, which we didn't have back then, the assembly code there would actually make things slower, because it meant like the compiler would go like, oh, I can't optimize anything in here because I don't know what assembly code does. So it would actually... Back then, it would have made sense, but today, like, programming has become so different, and essentially, like, multi-threading and so on just how you split up tasks to do, which we can do a lot better now.
Yeah, and of course, the economy code also contains the most infamous piece of code in all of, I would say, Paradox history. What's it called? The money injection bonsai?
Yeah, so I figured we would end up there. That's why I talked about how the economy was a closed system where we never had to add money to it. Because as it turns out, we had bugs somewhere in that system where money disappeared. And we could not find where it was, I mean, for years. I think maybe Henrik found some of it.
I found one
as we were starting up Caligula, but like... The core problem was that we were leaking money somewhere and we could not figure out what it was. And the solution that we needed, which was, I think, the week before release, was we need to get the money back in somehow. So I remember it because one of the programmers, Frederick, on the team then was... him and I was looking at it, and it was kind of late. And we were sort of almost ready with the Goldmaster version. or maybe this was even for the patch, I can't remember. But Johan like put the bottle of champagne on the desk and went like, "Don't work too late, guys." So we drank the champagne and we had this great idea for how to fix the economy, which was to make a variable called money injection banzai, and the title. So of course, because it was temporary, and we would just remove it later when we figured out the problems, right? But we never actually did. So that one's still in the game, basically.
I still think the comment
for
says...
every patch we did, we updated it.
Yes, I still think the comment says remove this later. To this day.
Yes. Comments that say that never get removed later. But no, I mean, it got smaller and smaller because initially it was quite a large number. And I think we even like added some sort of automated system because we could track how much money was lost total, but not where. So we actually had it adapt over time even, I think. And I don't remember who it gave the money to. I think it spread it evenly, but I'm not sure.
This is a very... So it was a very game development story, I would say. You have this hack, and the hack fixes the problem. You're supposed to fix it later. It doesn't get fixed, but the hack eventually gets adopted and becomes a system of its own. That I've seen that happen on numerous occasions. And, you know, if it works, it works. But yeah, that one, I remember running into that when I was parsing the code and going like, huh? What is this? And asking you about it. So
don't we have it printed on the wall at the office? Actually,
I think that was the previous office.
In one of the rooms.
Oh, yeah, in the previous office.
Oh yeah,
it was on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, but not in this one, sadly. But it's still glorious. It's still in there on our old code servers. So another thing, as a bit of a favorite moment for me during the Heart of Darkness development, was when we tried very hard, mind you, to find out why the economy would crash if you spared China. And I remember us spending a fair bit of time investigating that, in the end eventually coming up with, we don't know. We're no wiser than when we started. But if I remember correctly, you solved that mystery, Henrik, when we were working on the Christmas patch, correct?
Well, I mean, I found it, but I didn't solve it.
Yeah. I mean,
you
found the answer, but you didn't fix it because the fix is a little bit complicated. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So essentially, because I had, I never worked on it, so I had more time to just like go through things to like just, I want to, because it's fun to just read this and try and understand it. And I found that artisans, almost all of them switch their production at the same time. Would like, you know, so when return of investment of product like becomes not valuable enough anymore, they'll go and switch. And China has so many artisans. So like when you do spare them, all of the cost and so on changes because of the regional pricing changing. So then they all go like, oh, I need to do a new production. Switch. And then they ruin the entire economy by doing that. And then they go like, oh, I need to switch again. And then they'll just keep doing this because they're trying to like, you know, find what am I supposed to produce? But it's like millions of people switching production at the same time.
Basically, half of China switches to producing furniture, crashes the price of furniture. Then they all switch to, say, steel, crashes the price of steel, and so on and so forth until they have ruined the entire world economy. I was very like, it finally makes sense because, it was very interesting to spend a fair amount of time on that and just come up with, And this, I think, illustrates, the Victoria II economy.
Yeah, because it's basically the same as, you know, when you load the save or when you, like, occasionally you'll get like a dump in the economy and you don't know why. And like, that is because the artisans are reevaluating. So, and that will cost that. So early game is a lot more prevalent and then like it gets less and less and less. But it is because at start, they're all going to go like, oh, what am I supposed to be producing and try and figure out something better. And the loading of a save triggers that, for instance. And then China is just that on steroids.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that I think it's part of it being an accurate simulation that it crashes once in a while and nobody understands why.
I mean, it doesn't crash for maybe the accurate reasons, but it does crash. It is an interesting aspect of it, to be sure. Anyway, we should move on. And I'm actually thinking we have talked about it we have mentioned it several times. So let's talk a little bit about the Christmas patch. So this was, for those who are not familiar, the last patch done for Victoria 2. We did it in around Christmas 2015. And it was basically not an official patch, but rather the three of us on your initiative, if I recall correctly, Dan, getting together and making just like, we're just making this patch. So I'm actually going to ask you, Henrik, since you've gotten to talk the least so far, is like, tell us what you remember about the Christmas patch and why we did it, because I think you can speak for all of us there.
I mean, I remember us, like, I think Social Hour work complaining about like some small issues. And I was like, oh, it would be nice like if you could just right-click on a country and get up the diplomacy screen like you can in most of our modern games now. Like small like quality of life things like that, and then like some bigger bugs that could be fixed and so on. And then we just like, started making it. We like dug up the old repository where the code was and just started working a bit slowly, but it wasn't like intended to be released at Christmas. It just became very fitting to do so, if I remember correctly.
I think we just happened to have some free time, right?
Yeah. That's how I remember it as well. It was we got talking about this towards like the end of November, start of December, and then we had some time and we pretty much sat down and just made I think you made a post in the forums and we asked people like, hey, we're going to make a sort of an unofficial patch. What do you guys want to see in it? And we got a bazillion replies and we sifted through it. And, it was everything from, oh, this is super doable, this is quality of life thing, to please rewrite the entire game, which is perhaps a little bit outside scope here. And in the end, I think we got a good list together. We implemented a whole bunch of it. I recall, I made the right-click diplomacy. Oh, God, I'm trying to remember what I actually fixed. It was a fair few things. I tried to improve capitalist AI.
I think the most important thing that you added is the polar bear purchase will now turn all pups in Iceland, Greenland, Jan Mayen into polar bears. I think that's the most important thing you added.
I mean, I was getting to Jan Mayen, but I guess we might as well talk about that here then. So, Jan Mayen interjection. So, I mean, of course, I'm the one who implemented this, but I would prefer to hear it from your perspective, Dan, since if I recall correctly, it was something I dropped on you after you made an offhand comment.
Oh, man, I don't exactly remember, but there was some talk about why there wasn't why Jan Mayen didn't exist on the map, right? Because it wasn't even on the map initially, right?
No, it was on the map. This was actually the opposite. I noticed that Jan Mayen was a thing in the game and that there were 12 people living there, and I think 18 actually. And I asked you, like, why is this a province? Like, why is this a province in the game with 18 people? It's not even inhabited today. And you were like, oh, put on your best troll face, like, no, you're right. It should just be a province. It should be a country. And so I made it a country. So I went back to my computer, implemented it, and then I sent you a screenshot with Jan Mayen as a country and was like, done. Because, you're the project lead.
And you made the flag a polar bear, right?
Yeah, you're the project lead. You tell me it's supposed to be a country. I make it into a country. That's how development works. And it, had a blue polar bear, or the blue background with a polar bear by default, red background with a polar bear for communists, and so on. It was beautiful. And that was just the original. You could just release Jan Mayen and people had a bit of fun playing at this because it's a ridiculous country to play. You have no economy whatsoever. You have 18 fishermen, but they're highly literate fishermen. So you do get a lot of tech points. So you could become a secondary power. Yeah?
There's usually a guy making alcohol for the fishermen as well, right?
Yeah, there might be like one artisan or something. So yeah, you could, so even though you're this ridiculous little community of just a few fishermen and maybe one guy making alcohol, you do get a lot of tech points, which means that if you focus on the prestige techs, you can become a secondary power and then you can try to become a great power and lead John Mayen to greatness. And the fact that people thought this was a fun thing to do meant that we were like, okay, we should actually do something with this in the Christmas patch. And I think we did a little bit above and beyond. So it started, if I recall correctly, with me adding the polar bear purchase, which is a decision you can take. That if you become a secondary power as Jan Mayen, you can purchase Greenland and Iceland from Denmark. And then you don't get a little bit of land. You still don't have a lot of pops, but you have something more than 18 fishermen. And then you added the polar bear culture and the polar bear leaders.
Yeah, I still can't remember if I painted the polar bear leaders or if I just painted one and then guilt-tripped the artists into making nicer versions of it.
I think it was the
But we
latter.
ended up with, there's even like a separate admiral, right?
Yeah, with the pipe.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So
I never got a 3D model though.
Oh yeah, no, unfortunately. But those were the heady days of the Christmas patch. But okay, so Polar Bear and John Mayen aside, what was your favorite addition that you made for the Christmas patch, Don?
I think the thing I remember most is me doing the crazy thing with World Wars. It was some idea that got stuck in my head because I wanted to sort of keep making it more and more sort of decisive, the war. Because I think I'd started thinking about Hoi 4 at this point. I was probably working on it, actually. But you had a new invention that popped up, which was someone invented World War I, basically. And it shifted a bunch of rules around how you could claim territory and stuff. And I remember it because my first implementation of it actually crashed that we released, so we had to patch it.
Yeah, the dangers of like unofficial patching with not that much testing on them. But, you know, it was a beta patch. It was an optional patch. And we sorted it in the end.
Yeah, I think we just dropped it on the forum, actually. It wasn't like...
Yeah, it was a zip file, wasn't it?
Properly for a while.
Yeah, it was a zip file, and eventually you managed to like find the old batch script to upload it to Steam, if I recall correctly, because that I remember we didn't have anything, because it was an older project, we didn't have anything as nice as all the automated stuff we have today. It was, you know, put these files here and edit this text file, run this batch script from Steam.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work, call Steam.
Oh yeah, call Steam when they're awake, which is not a lot during our office hours. What about you, Henrik? What's your favorite addition that you made?
Borderless window mode.
Yeah,
that took a lot of work to get that to work in the original Clausewitz engine.
That was some wizardry, actually.
Yeah, but that was my favorite because, like, otherwise, you know, it was the old style full screen where, like, if you tab, then it would reset everything in the screen, and like it was really annoying, and occasionally it would crash. So it was quite nice to have borderless window mode, so you could play it like on a modern computer and like browse the internet at the same time, you know, like you'd usually do. But I would say also my favorite change was probably that you made, Martin, which is the, like, you don't get spammed with the event, you know, the tractor event.
Of course, yes. I spent quite a bit of time converting everything that was incredibly spammy in terms of events into more broader things, like election events became countrywide, because also it would be great to have an election event where it's like the people of Alaska decide, and this will not shift any election, but, you know, this happened. And yeah, and no more, every single province has to have tractors introduced to them, because, oh my God, all the tractors in Russia.
Do you remember when we fixed the sound from infrastructure upgrades?
I mean, I think I just...
If you remember that?
Didn't I just lower it to like 0.25, like 25% volume at some point or something? And I also disabled a couple other sounds because everything was like, a lot of the sounds were very, very, very loud and very like, ouch, my ears. I think that was Out of Darkness.
It was like for every province on the map sometimes.
Oh yeah, if you build all the railroads, then just play this 100 times over each other until your ears bleed. All right. But yeah, good times. But let's get back to the economy. So there's a favorite anecdote I would say that we kind of have about Victoria 2 versus Victoria 1, and that is the capitalists. In which game are they smartest? So, yeah. Do any of you guys want to volunteer to tell us this little anecdote? Because I think either of you knows it by heart.
I can do it. That's an oldie.
Yeah.
For Henrik.
No, you do it. You worked on it.
All right. Yeah. So basically, on Wiki 1, capitalists would essentially, the way they would pick what to do is that they would essentially create a list and then remove everything that was impossible and then just roll the dice. So not very smart, right? But what they did in Victoria 2 was it tried to figure out what the best thing was. And they weren't always so good at figuring out what the best thing was, which of course is always dynamite, right? But so a lot of people thought that the Wiki 1 capitalist was way better because they didn't get stuck on dumb choices. Because if it's random, it appears that there's some variation. It appears like they're actually thinking through, testing different stuff. When in actuality, it's just random. And I think this is one of the great lessons about making AI, which is like, it's very easy to get stuck in like, what's it called? Like minimum, like smaller optimums, right?
Yeah.
And
as someone with a history of AI development, it's also one of my favorite anecdotes to like bring up to anyone who's going to get into AI. Is like, whatever you produce may not necessarily appear smarter than randomness, because it's, you know, it would, if you compare them, I would say that with all the like expansions and all the changes, the Wiki 2 capitalists on the whole make better decisions than the Wiki 1 random roll. But the Wiki 1 random roll will have occasional moments of brilliance, because it'll be like, I'm going to be this AI will just happen to roll exactly the thing that was super smart at the time. And players also tend to remember these sort of moments of brilliance more. So if one such moment of brilliance happened and then it made 5 dumb decisions, that might still stick. Whereas in Wiki 2, it'll make more consistently like middling decisions, which the player could always opt on and occasionally get stuck in making the same really dumb decision over and over and over, which is another thing that players absolutely tend to remember if the AI keeps failing consistently in the same way.
You mean like consistently building clippers?
I mean, clippers are beautiful. That was another thing. I tried to get the AI to stop using clippers and manowars in the Christmas patch, and I somewhat succeeded, but there's still screenshots of early 1900s clipper navies rolling around, so, yeah. I mean, wooden boats are nice, okay? They're just nice. Let's actually move on from the economy, because we should probably talk a little bit about something else. Something I kind of wanted to ask you, Don, is we did make several expansions for Victoria 2, and you were somewhat involved in all of them. So I would like to ask you, like, which expansion features do you really think worked out? Like, what were the good ones that got added to the game? And which didn't work out?
Let's see. So I think probably my favorite one was probably the crisis system, which was combined with a new colonization system to essentially create these crises around the map. I thought that was a great system. It felt really appropriate for the game. And it was something we had talked about for quite a while, actually, of doing. But we didn't get around it until I think it was Heart of Darkness for that one. So that's probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
My personal favorite that turned out to be perfectly honest, a bit crap, was newspapers. I had this great idea that it would be really cool to get all the events summarized and have some fun jokes and stuff in there. And I think I was the only person who liked that, actually.
It was fun for the first. It was always fun for the first few newspapers, but you get them so often, and they're full of okay, this is not, and they're full of repeats. So I think it's this kind of feature where, with enough time and polish and if you focus the stories a bit more, it could be really neat and maybe getting them less often. But it sort of ended up being just, oh, okay, I have a 99 unread newspaper as well. I'm not gonna be getting on that anytime soon. I will also say that the crisis system is something we've definitely taken inspiration from in Victoria 3 and built a very central feature to the game around, like quite similar. And yeah, they're working on Heart of Darkness there and just really liking the crisis mechanic. Very much inspired me for Vicky 3.
I'm looking at the list of bullet points actually from 2012 here, and I'm surprised by the fact that we apparently didn't have war justifications at game start.
No, there wasn't.
I can't remember Victoria without justifications.
Wasn't that Heart of Darkness too? I remember us working on that.
No, it was House Divided apparently.
Oh, it's House Divided. Okay, yeah. We are also, by the way, kind of running out of time, so we can hop on from this if you don't have any other sort of strong points. Do you have a favorite expansion feature, Henrik, or are you just going to mention sort of the same things?
I think I would, because I'm the kind of player that likes playing like Lost Causes. So I liked, for instance, a House Divided, like adding like a little bit more content for Texas, I think, if I remember correctly. And because, you know, a lost cause and trying to win and like also tell the USA, no, I'm not going to join you, and I'm going to make this Republic of Ranchers and survive in the middle of America, was always a lot of fun for me to play.
Yeah, I do.
Actually... like a lot more content that the expansions added is what I liked.
Yeah, no, I also really like playing like tiny doomed nations and trying to make something of them. I think we have a lot of fun ones that you can play in Wiki 3. One of my favorites is Lanfang. Not on the level of Texas, but still. We'll get into that at some point. So something I just realized we've forgotten to bring up, and it's the single most important thing to bring up for sure, is of course the history of Fredrik's hair. And this is closely tied to the development of Wiki 2 and actually the very reason that Wiki 2 and Wiki 3 even exist. Dan, tell us about Fredrik's hair.
Okay. Okay. So fill in if I'm missing anything. But from when we were starting to make, or actually, I think before we even started making Wiki 2, someone asked Fredrik if it would be profitable. And he said, I don't think so, and I will shave my hair off if it is, right? And then it turned out that it actually worked out. So he shaved all his hair off live on stage in Germany, if I remember correctly.
E3...
We have sadly not found the video of this, though. Was it E3?
No. Yeah, E3 2010. I don't remember who it was that shaved it, but she, Fred linked to her on Twitter. I tried to dig up the video. I know it's somewhere on the internet, but I couldn't find it.
Oh yeah, so basically...
So you should make all financial gambles.
Fredrik lost his hair and we all gained Victoria 2 and Victoria 3, so I think that was a pretty decent trade, in all honesty. Right.
And Gamasutra did ask him, like, why did you like approve a game that you didn't think was going to turn profit? But it was like he answered Gamasutra with like, you know, it's because of the passion the fans have for the game, and we can see that, like, you know, with the Wiki 2 community and now also us within the company wanting to make Wiki 3. Like, there's a lot of passion behind this game.
Oh yeah,
Seriously.
I mean, as a Wiki fan, you know, getting to helm Wiki 3 has been pretty goddamn amazing, and not being able to talk about it for several years has been... So, you know, well, by the time you see this, it's all out in the open, and I'm super looking forward to it. But to wrap up, I'm going to ask the both of you a question, and then I will answer the question myself. What do you think is the biggest misconception around the entire Victoria series?
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception is that the person who wrote the code left the company, which is wrong. I am pretty sure it was Johan that wrote it originally, and then there's been several people afterwards that have changed things, optimized, and so on. and and then because of this, nobody would know how the economy works. But I would say, like, we still have that internally, that knowledge, and I've never understood where that misconception comes from.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure. I think it's misunderstandings on how code works, because we have all the code. It doesn't mean we understand it necessarily, or that whoever wrote it in the first place did.
Yeah, or it might just be a story that's been sort of lost. It's like this weird, people find out this person moves on, that through the game as telephone is converted into this person who wrote the code moved on to, it's a story that kind of sounds good. The explanation makes sense in people's heads, so it spreads. So I think it continues to spread to this day, even though we keep going. No, that's not actually what happened.
So I think it's a little bit because Johan writes it originally, or whoever it was originally, and then there comes in Septoman, who optimizes the game a lot, and especially the economy code, and then it's not recognizable for whoever wrote it originally, because a lot of work went into trying to make that run smoothly. I think Don, you referenced that there were hyperthreading. I think there was some multi-core programming as well, in the economy, very slight, to just help it a little bit, for instance.
Yeah, there probably was. I just remember the original algorithm being made in a way that made it incredibly hard to use. I think it's also the wiki community has also not really had much content in many years. So I think this kind of mythology stuff grows out of that probably as well.
Yeah, but I do think that there is one bigger misconception around the Victoria series than the one you just mentioned. And that is the idea that Victoria 3 will never be made. Because Victoria 3, as you know by now, is not just being made, it's just been announced, and you can wishlist it on Steam right now. And with that, I want to thank you, Dan and Henrik, for being here today and for babbling all the wiki memories with me. And I will see you all soon.